What we got here? Halloween Trumpkin. Jane's idea, right? Definitely not Melania's. Let's see. What do we have here? I need you to be on my team front and center. Front and center. No, front and center is not the best thing. It's much better to be behind the curtains. It's what I've told you many times before. Although you've been kind of front and center for a long time, haven't you? You know what that's like. And your target, too big of a target. And this badge of burden that you want me to wear. Yeah. We're going to have to talk about this. You know, this isn't my first rodeo. No. The best administration I worked with, in the front and center, as you call it, or almost front and center, was the Truman administration. Now, Harry was a guy that he and I saw eye to eye on things. He listened to me, although he was a little bit stubborn. He had his ways. But Harry got, I don't know, the OSS kind of got up his butt. And he wanted to get rid of them. So, I convinced him that maybe the OSS had become a little bit too, what is it you call in here, front and center, and that maybe they needed to be retired, sort of. So we invented the whole CIA thing, and they took the front and center stage for many decades now. And, but thanks to me, the OSS is still around. That's right. It's time that you and I had a talk about this. So, I guess we better have at it. One more drink for the road.
Tiffany's Pumpkin Patch, where we grow them extra scary in October. How may I help you?
Yes, I'd like to order a very large pumpkin spice latte.
Authentication code?
That would be Donald Duck X 1946.
Be aware that this is a secure line to the White House. Please hold for the president.
Jane, how are you doing?
Hello, Ed. The president was hoping you would call. How do you like the new security features? I hope it wasn't too much trouble.
No, it wasn't bad. In fact, it's kind of cute. It's how have you been? How are you getting along there, Jane?
Oh, I'm just Peachy King. Hold on, I'll get the big man for you. He's going to be so excited to talk to you. He's asked me all day if you've called. Hold on.
No, that's fine. Take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
Hello.
Mr. President.
How you doing, okay?
It's time that you and I have a little chat about this Joint Chiefs of Staff thing that you sent me. And this badge of burden you want me to wear.
Right.
Yeah. We need to have a long talk about this. Biden has been in the Senate since 1973 up until he became vice president. So he has many decades of things for them to cherry pick from to find fault with him on and find little things that he got involved, scandals or whatever you might say, or deals that he made that might not have been scandalous at the time, but now because we live in this politically correct world, all of a sudden now it's scandalous. So they've got plenty to cherry pick from when it comes to Biden. So this Ukraine mess is an example, and it's not going to be one thing. They're not going to take him down and convict him of anything or whatever. What it's going to be is they're going to have little stories just like this Ukraine mess of him and his son to hit him here and hit him there and a little slice here, a little slice there, and then eventually he'll step aside because he'll start to lose support in the polls. Now, he won't lose support in funding, and all of his funding goals will have been reached because this is all part of the plan. And don't think that all the Democrats don't walk in lockstep. This is why the Republicans kind of suck for the most part, because they don't walk in lockstep, but the Democrats do. They've got a well-oiled machine. Sounds like almost like I'm a Democrat. I used to be a Democrat during the Harry Truman days, from the Andrew Jackson days forward. I was a Democrat, but then when Ronald Reagan ran, I switched to the Republicans. I'm not crazy about the Republicans, but that's just exactly where conservatism lives right now, is with the Republicans. And I'm conservative. I'm not, well, okay, I don't want to get into the terms of liberal and conservative, because really, technically, all our founding fathers were liberal, and I considered myself to be liberal too. Liberal in thoughts and ideas, but not in concepts of social reconstruction, not in the form of communism. So what we should say is that Democrats turned into communists. I am not a communist.
In recognizing a communist, physical appearance counts for nothing. If he openly declares himself to be a communist, we take his word for it. If a person consistently reads and advocates the views expressed in a communist publication, he may be a communist.
I am a capitalist, and the Republicans represent capitalism. The Democrats represent communism, to me. It's just my opinion, but that's the way it is. Anyway, I want to talk more about Biden. So let's just get into the nitty-gritty of his life. And just to make sure that I explain this properly, I think that Biden will step out because of the different scandals, you might say, that happen over time, over between now and next spring. And Biden will slowly step aside as he loses support, not funding. So let me say a few things about Biden and his family and kind of give you a short bio. I want to do a more in-depth bio of Biden, because I think he's kind of an interesting fellow. Wouldn't vote for him, but you could be interesting and I don't vote for you. Hell, for that matter, the Clintons are interesting as far as all the murders that are surrounding them. But anyway, back to Biden. He's been married twice, and his first wife died in an accident, but she gave him 3 kids. The first kid's name was Bo, the second kid's name was Hunter, and the last kid's name was Naomi. And then in 1977, he married his second wife, and she gave him a daughter named Ashley. So he has 4 kids. And so we're not going to go through all of Joe's life, but I'm going to hit some high points because I want to talk about his son, Hunter. On December the 18th, 1972, his wife and his children, at that time, his 3 children, were all coming out of a department store or grocery store, I'm not sure which, but they were hit by a semi-truck. And the wife and the daughter was killed instantly. The 2 boys were sent to the hospital. Bo, which was the older boy, had a broken leg, and Hunter had a fractured skull. But they both came out fine after that. They healed up. But unfortunately, the wife and the daughter were killed. And I know, regardless of what kind of slime ball you think politicians are, politicians do love their children. They do love their families, and I'm going to give them that. And I feel sorry for Joe for losing his wife and kid. I can't imagine how tough that must have been. That was just after he had won the 72 Senate election in Delaware, which he held that office until he became vice president under Obama in 2008. So he held it for a long time. He's a career politician all the way. We can not agree with these politicians. We can call them all kinds of names in their policies, but we can have some sympathy for them, though, with their personal lives and their family lives. I'm not here to run his personal life into the ground. I'm not here to run his son, Hunter, into the ground either. But I do want to give you kind of a bio on Hunter because of this sort of scandal that we're talking about in the Ukraine. Okay, so here's some things about Hunter's life that I think that are interesting to note. Hunter seems to me, I've read as much of the biography as I can on him. He seems to be a fellow who is smart, yet he moves around a lot in his life, in his career, and in his family. So he seems to be kind of an unsettled fellow. It doesn't mean he's stupid, but it means that he's just unsettled. And I think that all of his life, his father, he's always lived in the shadow of his father. And I think, because okay, when you got a father that's a senator for several decades, then he's vice president of the United States, it's hard not to live in that shadow, as all presidents' children probably realize. So he's had this skipping around. So to give you kind of a brief on his life, he was born in 1970. He graduated from Georgetown with a history degree. He didn't quite know what he was going to do, but eventually he decided that he was going to go get a law degree. So he went back to Georgetown and started his law degree at Georgetown, but for whatever reason, and I don't know the particulars, but he dropped out of Georgetown. But he turned right around and he got into Yale, and he graduated from Yale Law School. Now that's a pretty big accomplishment. Graduating from Yale Law School can get you a long way in life. I'm sure that his father had a little bit to do with that. Now, I'm sure Biden, that doesn't mean that Biden went in and took the test for him or got him passed. I mean, he had to have some kind of smarts to get past. You know, you don't get a Yale degree from a box of Cracker Jacks. So don't get carried away and think that Biden has carried him his whole life. Biden is open. I'm talking about Joe here. His father has opened some doors for him. And here's where I'm going to speak on Biden's behalf. A lot of people are in criticism of what Joe Biden or other politicians have done for their children, and they say, oh, they've abused their office, they've done this. Any parent that's worth their salt is going to do whatever they can to help their kid out, no matter what they are, whether they graduate from Yale Law or they're a criminal. They're going to be on the side of their children. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't give 2 cents for a politician at all if they didn't try to open as many doors as they possibly could for their kids. So I applaud Biden on whatever he's done for his children. There's no problem with that. Are you saying no? Oh, okay. Anyway, now Hunter did marry in 1993, and he had 3 daughters. But then he divorced in 2017. I don't know the particulars of his personal relationship, whatever, but he did marry in 93 and he divorced in 2017. He graduated from law school from Yale in 1996, and then he went right in and he started working for MBNA. And by 1998, he was an executive vice president of MBNA. Now, that's pretty extraordinary for a guy that age with relatively very little experience. And I know law school sounds like experience, but it's not. Usually a man doesn't become a vice president of a major company until they're in their 50s or 60s or so and they've done decades of work. But he was able to slip right on up. Like I said, Joe is giving him plenty of open windows, and Hunter's had the good sense to climb through them. But he just doesn't stay long enough to really get the full benefit, hence his moving around. From 1998 until 2001, he joined the Department of Commerce under the last part of the Clinton administration. I'm not sure what he did in the Department of Commerce, but he was in the Department of Commerce. But then, in 2001, he went out and he decided that he would start his own consulting company, a lobbyist. He was going to be a lobbyist on K Street. And so he started the firm called Aldecker, Biden, and Belair. But that didn't last that long either, because then in 2006 to 2009, he got George Bush to appoint him to the board of directors of Amtrak. And then he got with a friend of his named Chris Hines, who was a stepson of John Kerry, the John Kerry who ran for president in 2004. And then they created an investment company called Rosemont Seneca Partners. But then he decided that he would become an attorney for Bose, Schiller, and Flexner LLP. But then he decided that at the age of 43, for whatever reason, that he would join the Navy. Now, he had to have a waiver to join the Navy at 43 because most fellas cannot join any service at the age of 43. Even in war, it's hard to get into the service. But he got a waiver. Of course, when your father is the Vice President of the United States, you can get a waiver. So he got a waiver. He got in the Navy. He served for 9 months. He served from May of 2013 until February of 2014. And then he was kicked out because he tested positive for cocaine. So what we have here, in my opinion, is a pretty troubled fella. A smart fella, but a fella that lives in the shadow of his father, who's opened a lot of windows for him. And I mean, when your father opens up that many windows for you, surely you can get into one of those windows and you can stay. But Hunter Biden is not that type of fella.